What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast. Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Tonight's special guest really needs no introduction, but I'll give it a shot. His name is Wayne Neyens, and he was a designer at Gottlieb for many, many years, and many of their best-loved games from the 50s and 60s were his creations.
Hello, Nick.
Hi, Wayne. How are you?
Well, I'm pretty good.
Excellent.
I've been waiting here for you, and that's great to make it. It's a good time for me.
Excellent, excellent. I know that you started in high school, right? At Western Equipment and Supply.
That's correct, yeah.
Excellent. And you started as a draftsman?
I can give you the date on that. I started there on February the 11th,
All right.
1956.
You're coming up on the anniversary here.
I got good records on everything I've ever done.
That's amazing.
I got records of everything I've ever made, as far as money is concerned, and the month, the date, and all that stuff.
Wow.
I'm a figure guy, you know.
I gotcha. I'm pretty fond of numbers myself, so that's good. So you went to Western straight out of Crane Technical High School. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so after school, I always got out early because I always had a job doing something, and I got out about 1:30. So I ran down there and I ended up being hired. And he put me to work the next night, and I brought my drawing stuff with me and my drawing set and my triangles and everything. So I didn't know what they had, and I was given a job in the engineering room and sitting directly behind me. And in fact, the man I was working for was Lynn Durant. I don't know whether you've ever heard of Lynn.
Oh yes,
Durant.
Yes, United
Manufacturing, right? He became the owner of United, but he was a mechanical, electrical engineer at Western.
Mm-hmm.
Then when they closed up, he and Williams went over to Exhibit and became a design team. And then, of course, the war came along, and one thing or another, they had a big fight and split up, and Williams went his way, and Durant went his way, and they had United and Williams were two competing firms, of course. But they were once very good friends, and they became, well, I wouldn't use the word enemy because it's too strong a term, but they became less friendly.
I got you. But was it kind of a friendly competition, or?
Well, it was probably more than that. I never seen his plant, but when it was in operation. But I hear that the trucks were lined up for blocks, picking up games that he was producing. So he did real well.
Excellent.
And you know, if he had been in business when I left Western, I would have went to work for Durant.
Really?
Because Lynn and I became very good friends, and but he was still working for Exhibit, and so then I ended up over at Gottlieb because Harry Mabs was over there.
Mm-hmm.
His son, Harry Mabs' son, Bud Mabs, was my age. And him and I used to pal around together. We'd date together and go out on a Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
And Harry liked me going out with Bud because I kept him in a straight and narrow. I wasn't a drinker and a carouser like Bud was, and I keep him out of trouble, you know. So, so that Harry really took a liking to me, and I worked for Harry for quite a long time and did a lot of work for Harry. But it didn't last that long as a draftsman. As soon as I got out of high school, when I graduated, I went to Jimmy and I told him, well, I graduated and I'm ready to start full time. And he said, I can't keep you on full time. We don't have that much work for you. And so I said to him, well, let me work in the factory.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever you got a job, I'll run up and draw it for you. And then when I get through, I'll go back and work in the factory. You always have to help somebody. And he said, that's a great idea. We'll do that. And that's what happened. I went down, I go in the shop, and I work, and then I go up and do a drawing, and I go back and work in the shop. And I worked in any department where there was somebody missing. I ran cables, I laced cables, I soldered playboards, relay banks. I ran a drill press, worked in the stock room. You know, and you know what they were doing? They were teaching me the whole bit. You know. And
yeah, the whole business.
They didn't realize what they were doing to. Anyway. It ended up and Jimmy went. I suppose you heard. I don't know whether you heard the story or not, but Jimmy went broke, and there were three guys: me and a fellow by the name of Don Anderson
mm-hmm.
and Emil Goodman, and the three of us worked in this factory by ourselves, and we rebuilt the Western baseball.
Oh, okay.
And Emil was a terrific electrical engineer. He really was something, and he redrew that circuit and made that game work. And anyway, we got the game going. We made a few games. We loaded them on trucks, the three of us. We worked 6.5 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was making 30 cents an hour. So.
Whoa.
It was kind of rough going, and anyway, we got back on our feet, and the factory's going. And Jimmy says to me, Wayne, when we get back on our feet, I'm going to take care of you. You know, I go, gee, I appreciate this. You know, so now we're going,
mm-hmm.
and my job now is the final inspector. I'm on the end of the line, in charge of this whole line of games coming off there.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy next door to me, I by this time I was making 40 cents an hour, and he was making 50 cents an hour. And I said, you know, that's not quite right. But he was a married man. He had a couple of kids, you know. And I said, well, okay, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He needled me all the time. He always kept that old needle into me, and of course it didn't do me any good. So one morning I was not in a very good mood, and Jimmy came in the back door, and he always stopped at my spot, and he said, how many we got off, Wayne? And I tell him, well, we got 10 off, we got 12, whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He said, okay, push him a little bit, we need more. And I said, Jimmy, I want to talk to you a little bit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, what about? I said, about money. He said, oh, well, I'll call you up to the office and we'll talk this afternoon. And I said, okay. And so about 1 o'clock, 1:30 or so, he called me on the loudspeaker, Wayne, come to the office. And I went up there and sat down in his office. And he said, what seems to be your problem? And I said, the guy working next to me, under me, makes more money than I do. And Jimmy, you promised to take care of me, and you haven't done it.
Mm-hmm.
He said, oh, yeah. I said, I tell you what we'll do, Wayne. I'll give you 2.5 cents. I said, 2.5 cents? Yeah, okay. So I walked down the stairs. It's 1:30 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I walked down from the office, went over, got my toolbox, put all my tools in, and walked out the front door. Jimmy didn't even know I was gone. And the whole factory come to a halt.
Oh, wow.
You know, I went to Gottlieb. They put me to work immediately, and I worked overtime. And when I got home, I got to my house, my apartment. Here was Jimmy Johnson sitting in his car out in front of my house.
Wow.
He gets out of his car, and I thought he was going to hit me, you know. He's tough, you know, and he's a big guy, and he was nobody to fool around with. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He he was pretty tough. But anyway, I take him up in the house, my apartment, and just me and my mother living there.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister was in a nursing school, and so just my mother and I were there, and so my mother sat down with us, and she listened to the conversation, and then Jimmy got up and left, and he said, "I want to see you in the morning," and I said, I don't know, Jimmy," and so my mother said, "You got to go back to Western. You got to,
Mm-hmm.
And all night long I worried about this, and I said, "No, I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it." And I went back to Gottlieb and went to work. Then about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm now they gave me a job at testing playboards, and so anyway, I'm busy doing my thing on the playboard line, and I feel this tap on my shoulder, and I turn around and hear it, Dave Gottlieb. And I'd never met Dave. I'd seen him at the shows and things, but I never met him.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "You Wayne Neyens?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Look, there's a guy at my office said I should fire you." And I said, "Oh, that must be Jimmy Johnson." I said, I walked out on him yesterday, and I felt kind of bad about it, but I couldn't take him anymore. And anyway, he said, "Well, what happened exactly?" And so I told him. And he said, "Wayne, let me tell you something. As long as I own this company, you got a job."
That's amazing.
And he meant it,
Mm-hmm.
He was assuring me that Jimmy wasn't going to touch me. So and Dave wasn't a big guy. He was kind of short. He was probably only 5'6" or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Jimmy was at least 6'2".
Whoa.
And at 250 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
And I could just see Dave going up, putting his hand up in Jimmy's face. Say, "You leave that kid alone," But anyway, that's how I got to Gottlieb.
That's amazing. So, you worked with some great people at Western. You named Linda Runt and Harry Mabs and Jimmy Johnson and some of the other folks. What were your opinions on all those people that you worked with there at Western and the work that they did there?
Well, I liked most of them. Some of them were I don't know, just guys trying to make a buck in those days. You do anything. And
mm-hmm.
we had one guy, Herb Breitenstein, who was a pretty good designer, but he never made anything. But he hung on pretty good for 6 to 8 months. And that's the way they came and they went. And some of them I got acquainted with and knew well, but some of them just came and went and moved on. We had so many designers. We had more designers than people sometimes.
Really?
Yeah. No, nobody knew what to make.
Okay.
We were making all gambling equipment.
Right, payout games.
Gambling, and that was illegal in Chicago.
Yeah, that must have been interesting.
You couldn't make gambling games, so every once in a while, Jimmy would have to pay them off.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to raid the place, so they call up Jimmy, "Hey, we're going to raid your place." And he'd tell us, "Put the lights out and everybody keep quiet. No, I want no noise." And just like as if the place was dead. And then he'd manage to find some money someplace, and he'd pay them off, and then he would come put the lights on and say, "Okay, back to work, everybody." And we'd go back to work. That was back in the gambling days,
Yeah.
But then we got into the free play, and that was... I had a big part in that.
That's what I hear. Yeah. Can you tell me a little about that? You invented a crucial unit, from my understanding.
Yeah. Somebody had made a push type coin chute
mm-hmm.
that you put a nickel in and it would work. Now, if you didn't have a nickel, of course, it don't work.
Right.
But it had a lever underneath that if you activated this magnet relay that was attached to it, it would throw a lever over and open up that coin chute so you could push it in without a nickel.
Mm-hmm.
And they called it a free play coin chute. Well, he got a patent on it, and he brings it to Jimmy Johnson, and Jimmy Johnson buys his patent.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's got it, so he's got the coin chute and everything, and he draws all the engineers together. All right, boys, we're good. I want to show you something here. And I happen to be drawing at that particular time. So in the factory, I'm drawing.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened in on the conversation. I was a kind of I don't know, and I was going to use the word fresh, but I wasn't fresh. I was pushy.
Okay.
I pushed myself into things. And so I pushed myself into the inner circle to listen in on this new fad, this new thing he had. So, and all the guys said, "Well, what are we going to do with it? I don't know how that's going to work and all this stuff." And I said, "I know how to do that. I know what you want." And Chippy says, "What do you know about it?" I said, "I'll make it up for you." And he said, "Well, go ahead." And I did. It took me 2 days to do it, and I put it in a game, and it works, and they were amazed. So the next day, I'm back working in the factory. Next day, I get a call on a loudspeaker, and Jimmy calls me up to the office. I go up there, and he introduces me to this guy that made our step switches, GM Laboratory. The president of GM Laboratories. And he says, "Hey, kid, you made this unit, and I'll make you a deal. I'll give you $50 to sign off the rights to that." And I said, $50? Wow, I'll take that. I grabbed that $50 so fast, signed that paper, I didn't even know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "My gosh," years later, I thought, "Oh man, if I'd applied for a patent myself right then,
mm-hmm.
I'd be a billionaire." But anyway, that was the beginning of the free play unit, and it worked out fine.
Yeah, I would say so. It really changed the industry.
It did change the whole industry. It went from gambling.
Mm-hmm.
To fun, to amusement, and
right. So, what was your opinion of the payout games that were being made at Western? Did you ever play them?
They were just a way of making a living.
Okay.
They made other things besides pinballs, gambling pinball. They had what they called consoles. Yeah. Which. You know what a console is? Mm-hmm. And we made guns. We made tried to make an electric gun. Mm-hmm. And all kinds of junk. One day, this is kind of a funny little story. Everybody copied everybody else. Mm-hmm. It was a dog-eat-dog days in those days. And Jimmy got in a game, and he called us all together, and he says, all the engineers, and he says, "No, I'm going to get a game in here, and I want you guys to stay here tonight and copy that game, because I got to get it out of here first thing in the morning. You got to be back on the truck and out of here. I can't have it any longer than one night." And so he got this game. They brought it in about 5, 6 o'clock, and we all got a part to build. Mm-hmm. And we put that game together during the night, and by morning we had the game. Duplicate of it, Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff we did.
Sounds questionable.
Well, today it is, but at that time it wasn't. It was, things were so hard. You can't imagine the difficulty in getting money. Work where you just couldn't get the job. You couldn't, and it's amazing what we did to make a buck, just to make a buck.
Do you have any other stories like the one working in the dead of night like that?
Well, let's see. I think about something. You know, I forget some of these things, but it comes back to me. I don't think I have any other stories like that. Seems to be there was one other thing, but I can't think of it at the moment. But
well, maybe we can...
I'll tell you something. I think you'd probably be interested in. You know, back in we'll say 35. There was no plastics. Now, today, you cannot imagine that.
Right.
There was no plastic. Nothing was made of plastic. Nobody knew what plastic was.
That's incredible.
You know, it's hard to... I can understand how like a young man like you can say, how can that be?
Yeah.
How can it be? No plastic. But in those days, on the pin games, we used what they called barrel springs, flag springs, double flag springs, type of thing, you know? And the company that made these springs that we used on the pin games was almost on the tip of my tongue, I forgot it now. Well, anyway, the salesman for them was, oh my, I got a picture of him right here. Where the heck is he here? What was his name?
Charlie. Was that his name?
Charlie Castaker.
There you go.
Yeah, Charlie Castaker was a spring salesman. And he got a hold of a little injection molding machine, and he made posts. And he brought these posts into Western, and we were all looking at him. Oh boy, you use these in place of springs? Yeah, you got to just put a rubber ring on it and screw it down the plyboard.
Huh.
So that's pretty good, colorful, you know.
Yeah.
But what we didn't realize at the time, you know, plastic was so new, nobody knew anything about it and stuff. You screw that down, and in a week, the posts were loose. Because the posts would shrink.
Yeah.
You know, they had a tendency to return back to their original state of a glob. So it wasn't very successful at first, but then they gradually improved the formula for plastic, and of course, plastic today is everything. Everything is plastic today, and it's a wonderful subject of how it got to where it's at today. It must be very interesting to study it, but then plastic became stable, where it would hold its shape, and we used it extensively.
So was Charlie the only manufacturer of like the flag springs and things that were used in the 30s? Or were there multiple vendors that would come around trying to get the business?
Charlie didn't make the springs.
Oh, okay.
He worked for this spring company. It was, I can't think of it now. But he worked for a spring company, and when he got this plastic mold and he would start selling these posts, he quit the spring company and went off making all the plastic pieces. And he became, I think, American Molded Product, I think was the name of his company.
Okay.
And he started making all of the bumpers and so on, you know. and he made the thumper bumper.
Mm-hmm.
And he made all our plastic parts.
So he developed the thumper bumper. He developed the pop bumper?
He made the bumper. He made the original bumper.
The spring bumper with the carbon ring, or?
Right, regular bumper without the spring on it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Then he made two other bumpers. One was what you said spring bumper, which brings back. In fact, he made one bumper had a big spring on it that would pull down and push the ball out, and then he had the other one that you've seen,
mm-hmm.
and that's the one we picked it. Bob Smith picked it. He was our engineer at the time, and he picked out that one, and he thought it'd be a better one, and so Charlie made pop bumpers for us.
That's amazing. Wow. What a line of work.
Yeah, he did very well.
I would imagine so.
He was, and I tell you what, he was one nice guy. He was what you would call a gentleman. You know, there aren't many gentlemen in the world, but he was one of them.
Excellent.
I always felt that he was a gentleman. And I think he was.
So, jumping around a little bit here, but back at Western again, you mentioned in another interview that your first job as a draftsman was to draw a payout unit. Was this a solenoid-driven unit that pushed the coins out?
Yeah.
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 Okay. And
that was pretty tricky for a kid, you know.
I would imagine so. It's a pretty complicated piece of machinery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was your proving ground, huh?
Well, I tell you, I was pretty well shook up that day. As you can imagine, it's hard to put into words, but I had that butcher job in the back of my mind,
mm-hmm.
and I was supposed to be at the butcher shop, and here I am drawing parts and stuff in the engineering room of another company. So it was kind of hairy that night at my first day on the job, but I just thank my drawing teacher as the one who got me the job. I'm sure he's the one that put in the word for me, and I got the job. I'm sure I'm sure that Jimmy, or not Jimmy, but we had an engineer, Eric Bunander. He was the chief engineer at Western,
mm-hmm.
and he was really my boss. He really signed jobs, you know. But his name is Eric Bunander. Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that you completed that drawing and gave it to Eric and met with his approval? Is that how it went?
Yeah, just another job waiting for me, and I just went on from there. But I tell you, another thing that's very interesting. At that time, I can tell you things, and I know you're going to say I don't believe it. But we did not have a blueprint machine.
Wow.
Today there's they don't even have blueprint machine.
Right.
But then we had the paper, and we had a wooden frame with glass, and I had to take the drawing and the paper, put it in this frame, and hold it up to the light to make it, to produce the print. Now that's how we were making blueprints in a company at that time. Can you imagine?
That is incredible. That's amazing. That that is probably not the most efficient way to do that. But maybe it was at the time.
It's just ridiculous. You look back at it and you say, you couldn't do that. And it would not, you'd never get anything done.
Yeah.
But we did.
So how many people had to draw the blueprints for each game?
I was the only one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And otherwise, anything I didn't get drawn, they just sketch and they'd make a part or whatever,
So
things in those were pretty rough.
So are you telling me that for every game that was sold, for the blueprints that would go with the game, the schematics, so you would have to draw each one by hand?
Well, not at Western. We never put out a schematic.
Oh, okay.
I never made a schematic at Western. The games weren't that complicated.
Yeah, that's a little less frightening than I was thinking. So that's good.
Not till I got to Western did they make schematics and another interesting circuit design was Queen of Hearts.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the game?
I've played it a lot. I have never worked on one.
Well, it's underneath there was I think there were 5 holes,
mm-hmm.
and you had 5 balls, and it was like a crap game.
Mm-hmm.
All aces were, it was one thing for a straight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 was another payout. 2 of one kind and 3 of another was another payout. The combination of payouts was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got drawing that circuit up one time, and to see if I could do it,
Mm-hmm.
And because underneath the playboard, the ball had to run over a rollover switch and make contact, and the ball weighs so much, and the spring action of the blades was such tension that the ball would only a maximum 3 switches. You couldn't put 4 switches under that ball because of the angle at which it laid,
mm-hmm.
and the tension of the steel of the blades, and so you were limited to 3 switches per slot, or whatever you want to call that slot.
Okay.
Very interesting, and the circuit is extremely interesting. If you ever get a chance to look at one, it's a phenomenal circuit. I enjoyed drawing that circuit up. I got the idea how to make it on Sunday, and I went down to work on Monday, and I dropped everything I was doing and drew this circuit because I wanted it down on paper.
Yeah.
And it was something. That's Queen of and everybody asks me, what's your favorite game?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of favorite games, but Queen of Hearts is my game because of that circuit. Mainly because of the circuit. It meant so much to me that I could do it,
mm-hmm.
and make it work. And it was a very good game. But still, the collectors today, they like Queen of Hearts, but of course there are a lot of other games they like better. So, it's everybody's taste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to have to order up a copy of the schematic for Queen of Hearts now and take a look at that.
Yeah, you look at that circuit. That is something. It's an amazing circuit. It's when you do that, when you tie things together to use the same switch to do various things,
mm-hmm.
you get feedbacks.
Yes.
And you can have a problem. You don't see it until it's too late. So you have to be so careful.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, one of these things sneak in, and we don't know it. In fact, to go back a little bit, and when I was starting at Gottlieb, we were making games, and of course I was just working on the playboard, so I didn't have anything to do with anything. But they had a game, they had trouble. They shipped out a game, I don't know, 50, 60 games, 100 games, I don't know what it was, to New York. And they found a mistake, some sort of a feedback when something happened, something else happened, and whatever. Anyway, we had to fix it. And they had to send a guy to New York to fix these games. And I got picked to do it, you know.
Huh.
Dave come out and says to me, would you like to do it? And I said, sure, I'd like to do it. Absolutely, I should do anything, you know. And so he sends me to New York to fix these games. And I was in New York maybe almost a week, I guess. But when I left, this is very interesting. Dave gave me cash, you know,
Uh-huh.
$200, whatever it was, and maybe it wasn't that much. Probably that time money was cheap. Anyway, and a train ticket, and so I got on a train to New York, and I went to New York. I never been to New York. I didn't know anything. I was a country hick, you know. And I get out of the station at Grand Central Station there, and I walk up the street, and I got my suitcase and my toolbox, you know, and I'm standing there looking. What do I go do now? I get on the streetcar and paid my nickel, you know, and a dime, whatever it was. I think it was a nickel at that time, and I'm riding up. I had to go. I think Ponzer was on around 46th, 47th, 48th Street, someplace in there, and so I'm watching street signs. I go by and I say, you know, where am I? You know, and I see 34th, 35, 36. You know, I say, I'll get off at about 46th Street and I'll look around. You know, and so I get off at about 46th Street, and here was the Chesterfield Hotel. Well, a hotel's hotel, you know. So I go over and I go in and get a room, not realizing that that hotel, all the vaudeville people use that hotel.
Okay.
The place is full of dogs and chicks. You can't believe it. The place is a madhouse. And anyway, I stayed there and I ate dinner at the Automat, you know, which you go over and put a nickel in the slot and you get a hamburger or whatever. And anyway, I did my job and I came home and in the meantime, this is interesting. I wrote down everything I spent, nickel for this cab or the bus, 5 cents, newspaper, 3 cents, this, you know. And I had a list.
Yeah.
And when I came back to Gottlieb, I went in to see Mr. Gottlieb, and I laid my list down on his desk and on his change. And he says, you got this left over? And I said, yep. And he's all good. And so he said, okay, you do a good job. I go, oh, yeah, he's very happy. Everything worked fine, you know. So he's okay, well, go back to work. And I go back to my job on the playboard line, and the guy that's doing the job won't let me do it anymore. He says, you're not going to work here. This is my job. I didn't have a job. So I go to the superintendent, and he said, oh, I'll find you something to do. And so I kicked around the shop. I did a little of this, a little of that. And the weeks went by, and I finally got in the engineering room, and I helped Harry Mabs, one thing or another. And we had another problem. And Dave sent me out on another job, this time to Philadelphia. So I go into his office, and he gives me a couple $100, you know, on a ticket on the train, and he said, go take care of this problem. I said, okay. And he says, then listen, Wayne, I want to tell you something. you stay at the best hotel in town, and you eat in the hotel. And you don't bring me back any money. And he said, I don't want any receipts or anything. You just have a good time. And, from then on, he just give me money, and I'd go, and whatever I had, I'd hand it to him. Never questioned me about what I spent it for or anything.
That's amazing.
He trusted, and I trusted him. It was we had a great relationship.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
So, do you happen to remember the game that had the problem that got you sent to New York?
Oh, no. It was just a game.
Okay. And you may have answered this question with our talk about Queen of Hearts, but what was your favorite piece of engineering while you were at Gottlieb?
Well, as far as engineering was concerned, was that 4-player game. That was really something. But what I personally made was that contact switch. Mm-hmm. I have a patent on that.
This is the pop bumper spoon switch.
People does use pop bumper.
Yeah.
Up till that time, we couldn't use a pop bumper, anything of that magnitude, or that action, because you just burn those carbon rings off.
Yeah.
Within a week or two, the rings would be gone. Mm-hmm. And so the silver-pointed contact switch was I made to have a patent on it. That one I have a patent on.
Now, was that very expensive compared to the carbon ring?
Well, yeah, sure. We had the silver points, of course.
Right.
And the arrangement was a little more expensive. But, you only have 3, 4, 5 max, maybe 6 on a game. So it didn't amount to that much.
Okay.
I'll tell you a funny little story. Our superintendent at the time I was designing was Tony Burgo.
Uh-huh.
Not Tony Gerard. And Tony Gerard was our superintendent, and he was sharp as a tack. And he would come in my room, I had a private room. I worked all by myself. So he'd come in and sit and talk to me and look at the game, play the games, carry on. But he was so sharp, he would count the relays, and he'd count this and that. And he'd end up in his mind how much that game was going to cost before anyone ever even decided whether we build it or not. He was already, and he said, "Hey, Wayne, now, I can't build that game. You've got too much material in there. You've got to take something out of it." And I said, "I've already taken a relay out, or I give him a hard time."
Uh-huh.
And anyway, he was so sharp that he could figure out that was his responsibility to make money for the company, of course.
Right.
And he had to make games that made money for the company. Mm-hmm. And so it was his responsibility, and he started with me because I made the game. The first, so he had to start with me.
So did he really push you to design new circuits?
Did he what?
Did he really push you to design new circuits to handle the same load that you were planning on?
He tried to, yeah, but I never paid any attention to him. I let him think, he was influencing me, but I didn't really do it. I did exactly what I wanted to do, and at any time, they never had any really influence on me. It's kind of a rebel,
Yeah, well, your games were probably all the better for it.
You can't have when more than one person is involved. You can't design. I can't. Now we built this game. What was it? That 2-player game.
Challenger.
Yeah. Challenger. Well, 4 of us built that game, and it looks like it. If I designed it myself, it would have been entirely different. And I'm sure with any of the others, if Doc had done it, or Smith, or Elvin, or whoever,
Mm-hmm.
It would have been different. But four of us trying to work together, it didn't work out. But we made the game, and we had fun with it. I had one. I took one home, put it in my basement, my playroom, and my kids had fun with it.
That's good.
It wasn't the best game in the world, but it was a challenge for two people to play it.
Yeah. Well, do you recall something that you might have done differently on it?
Oh, I don't know. I really haven't thought much about it, but when I had it in the house, I look at it every once in a while, especially if the kids were playing it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think end to end, I don't think I would. I think I would have added. You stood side by side. I think would be better.
Oh,
I don't know.
That would be very interesting, because you've got that the person right beside you that you can kind of elbow and.
You're
more connected.
You're near each other where you can kibitz a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you're 5 or 6 feet away and you're in an arcade,
yeah,
you can't talk back and forth, and the spontaneity or whatever is gone. It's just there was a lot of things wrong with that game. Anyway, all history.
Yep. So in the 1950s, that was really the rise of the 2- and 4-player game. And when you've talked in the past that when you designed a 4-player game and a 2-player game, the 4-player was the stronger version. Why did you feel that way?
Well, we sold more of them, I guess. That's, the first game was a 4-player game. We never thought about making a 2-player.
Mm-hmm.
We made the 4-player, and Dave set the price what he's going to sell it for, and we had all the distributors come in, and we had a big showing of the 4-player. We thought that was going to be the game of the future.
Mm-hmm.
And when they found out what it was going to cost, they all kind of backed off, weren't too thrilled with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we sold a few, and then we're into a 2-player because of money. So we made Duet, which the 2-player game, and so we kind of alternated 2 and 4 players for quite a few years.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you something extremely interesting. On the 4-player game, I sent a game out into the field to a distributor, a 4-player game,
mm-hmm.
that I metered in such a way that it counted every time the game was played by 1 player or by 2 player or 3 player or 4 player. So I knew, I could find out immediately how many times that fourth player played,
mm-hmm.
and how many times it was 3 players playing, and how many times 2 players could play. And so we sent the game out, and we got it back, a couple of months later, and you wouldn't believe, the 4th player was very seldom used, practically nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3rd player was almost as bad. Actually, when they bought 4 players, the 3rd and 4th player was never used. But, we didn't tell any operator because, we were making money selling 4 players.
Right.
They thought
stopped the sales. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sale, So we made it both ways, but we in our hearts knew that the 4-player wasn't quite as good.
So it would take the operator longer to make back their investment, I guess, on the 4-player.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, actually, that kind of mirrors My playing coming up, I very rarely play in groups of 4, unless it's with a big group of people.
I have a 4-player game in my garage here that I play a lot.
What is it?
Spirit of 76.
Oh, that's a wonderful game.
I'll tell you a story about that in a minute.
Sure.
But, I got that 4-player, but I play it alone, and occasionally somebody will come, and we'll play a few games, and then they'll play by themselves. Mm-hmm. I'll come in the house and cook dinner or whatever, and they're still playing. People play a game by themselves, and they like it better. They go into a trance,
Yeah.
And you're part of that game.
Right.
You become part of that game.
Yep.
Did you ever hear the story of how I got this Spirit of 76?
Yes, it's a wonderful story. Would you mind telling it to my listeners one more time?
All right, sure. We had a lunchroom where we had lunch every day, and the top echelons sat at the same table all the time. So Judd Weinberg was our president at the time, and he was there. Alvin was there. I was there. And, I don't know, our purchasing agent and a couple others were there, and around this table, and everybody had gone and eaten and gone, and so we're through, and now we're holding a little meeting, which we did every day. We, what's going on, anything new, whatever. And so Judge says, we got to make a guess on how many Spirit of 76 we're going to make. And everybody said, I don't know. One guy would say, 2,000, 3,000, 2,500, and it went around the table. I don't say nothing. And Judge says to me, Wayne, you're not saying anything. How come? I said, if I told you how many, Judge, you just laugh. That's all you do. You can't believe what I'm going to tell you. And he said, come on. I don't laugh. I said, yeah, okay. I said, 10,000. Everybody laughed. I said, now there you go. You see? I told you were going to laugh. And he said, if we make 10,000, Wayne, that 10,000 game is yours, and I'll deliver it to your house. And I said, Judge, you got a deal. See, but he didn't know and didn't realize, but I knew. Because I had been figuring this out for 2 years ahead of time. That when we had the bicentennial, everybody in this country is going to want red, white, and blue. Mm-hmm. And Europe, too. I'm thinking to myself, Europe, they like American stuff. They're going to be excited about this bicentennial. And so we made it red, white, and blue in the cabinet and the game, and it was a good game besides. And so we had a phenomenal run. We made, I don't know, over 14,000. So you see, it was our normal runs at that time was 2,000, 3,000.
Wow.
So it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. We had trucks lined up in the street out there waiting to pick up games. We were making over 400 games a day.
Wow.
Now, you stop and think for just a minute. There's 60 minutes in an hour. Mm-hmm. And you work 8 hours. That's 480 minutes a day. Now, you take out 2 breaks, 10-minute breaks in the morning and night. You're down to 460. Have I got my figures right? I don't know. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
I mean, you have to make one every minute and 10 seconds. You have to push a game out the door.
Holy cow.
When you stop to think about it, at that time, we were running crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was chief engineer at this time, mm-hmm. So my responsibility was the whole shop, to keep that shop running.
Wow.
and it was crazy.
Do you have any recollection of how many people were working in the factory at that time?
No, I have no idea, but there were.
It must have been an awful lot of people.
I would say 600-700.
Wow.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's incredible.
And the only overtime we put in was in the punch press area. We ran a double shift on the punch press area. But outside of that, it was phenomenal. And so when you ran into a problem, someone made an error, maybe in a cable, running the cable, if a wire was wrong. You can imagine how things backed up.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just a glitch, and it backs up.
How frequently would something like that happen?
Oh, 2 or 3 times a day.
Wow.
Something like that. There's always something going wrong someplace.
Well, that's a...
you know, and that anything as complicated as that whole thing was, there's always had to be something going wrong. And I was always chasing around. But, you know, that game came at a bad time as far as electronic games were concerned, because we were so wrapped up in production of mechanical games, we didn't have time to work on electronic games. Engineering didn't have time for such a thing. We were all so busy chasing things down. So we kind of neglected that electronic circuitry. And we finally got into it, but we got into it too late.
And was that something that you were directly involved with, the System 1?
Well, I started it, but I didn't know anything about electronics.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, was that a real learning experience there, or how did you deal with that?
I had no experience in that area at all, so I had to hire a couple of guys, you know, and I had to rely on them. And they, of course, didn't know anything about pinball machines. You know, if I had nothing to do, where I could work with these electronic guys at the time, I think we could have done an awful lot better. But we, you know, it just this is the way it happened.
Yeah, had to keep stuff going out the door.
Yeah, and we were making money hand over fist, and then of course Judd sold the company to Columbia, and he walked out the door, and Columbia was stuck with it. So.
And were you still there at that transition to Columbia?
Yeah, yes, I was there. Yeah.
And, that was towards the end of the EM era, correct?
Pretty much so.
Yeah,
pretty much.
A couple years and then there.
I made so many games, you know, they all kind of run together, except for a few for some particular reason, you know.
Yeah. What are some of the ones that stand out to you?
Well, games that you know, some of the games that everybody likes, you know. Yeah, well, you know, I have my favorite games, of course, and Queen of Hearts is my favorite. Slick Chick, of course, everybody likes, so I like that too.
You follow the popular opinion?
Yeah, well, you know, you can't help but like it when everybody else likes it. You see, there must be something to it. But, of course, I liked all the games I got through with them, or I wouldn't have built them. I made a lot of games I threw out when I got through with them.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't even show it to the upper echelon, you know, Tony or Judd or any of them, Dave.
So How frequently would that happen? Was that a common occurrence as you were developing new ideas, or?
Yeah, I'd do some crazy thing, and I get through it. I play it. I say, "Oh my God, how can I do that? How can I do such a stupid thing?" And I'd throw it out. They'd never even seen it. They see me working on it, and wonder about what happened to such and such. I always had 4, 5, 6 games ahead of production, so I kept pretty busy.
I can imagine. Gottlieb cranked out a lot of games, and you were right in the middle of a lot of that.
So. Oh, yeah.
So, I'm looking at another game in particular called Sweet Adeline.
Sweet Adeline. Oh, yeah. Oh, there's a game.
Yes. And
you notice anything peculiar on there?
The numbers are bingo numbers, I believe I've heard you say before.
Yeah, they are bingo numbers. I was taken right off the bingo card. And, Dave wouldn't build a game that had a bingo card on it or was associated with a bingo card. Mm-hmm. But in this game, he didn't know it, And not until after we got through running the game did I tell him I took those numbers off a bingo card.
What did he say?
I don't know. I think he's ready to fire me at the moment. Just kidding. We just kid around.
Yeah.
But he was shocked. He didn't realize it. Nobody realized it.
You snuck one in.
Yeah, it's right off a bingo card. I think it was probably one of the belly bingos I had in the shop. I had a room, and that I worked in, and I had a lot of room for games, and they would buy one of every company's game.
Wow.
And bring it in and set it up in my room. Mm-hmm. And so I could go over all these games, and actually they'd set up like a ballet game, or a Williams game. I wouldn't even look at it. I didn't want to be influenced by it.
Okay.
But when they bring me a ballet game, a bingo, that I studied because I love the circuitry in that bingo game. I love those circuits, and I love to take their schematic and browse over it because I tried to pick up ideas from them.
Yes. And did you know Don Hooker?
No, I never met him.
Well, he designed most of the bingos, as you probably know. And
he was a big man up there, and I didn't know him. One of their designers, try to think of his name, but he moved to Mountain Home too. He lived in Mountain Home, and I didn't know he lived here.
Huh.
Until he died, and I saw his name in the obituary column. I said, for heaven's sake. I knew it was right here, and I never knew him.
What a coincidence.
Yeah. And another strange thing with Steve Kordig. Well, he gives me, I'm here, and my wife is quite sick, and the telephone rings, and it's Steve. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, Good, Steve. What are you doing?" He said, "I'm coming over for lunch." I said, "You what?" I said, "What are you doing here in Mountain Home?" He said, "My brother lives here. His brother lives just down the street."
No kidding.
Yeah, and so Steve would come here every once in a while, and whenever he'd come, he'd always coming over here and make me cook for him. But I never met Steve until after I retired.
Really?
All those guys palled around together.
Uh-huh.
Norm and Steve, and those guys. They palled around, and they I think it was Norm Clark had the boat. One of the guys had a boat on Lake Michigan, and the whole gang would go out together on this boat. But I never went with them. I never had anything to do with them. I never went golfing with them. I never went out on a boat with them. And they thought I was kind of, but it wasn't that I didn't want to have anything to do with them. Just I didn't want to be involved with their thinking on games. I wanted to think my own way. I had nothing to do with anybody. And
you didn't want to be unduly influenced. I can understand.
And once we would meet. We knew each other because of the shows.
Yes.
And I'll tell you another funny story here. But we all met at these different coin machine shows every year, and we knew each other, but I never associated with them. But when I was 37, they had a show at the Sherman, and me being young and innocent, like I was, they had me stay up in the room. They had rooms up in the hotel where they had special games. And this one year, it was my first year there. So it wasn't it had to be, I started in February, so it would be, I don't know, that was a month later or 2 months later. But anyway, I was pretty young. And so I'm up, my job was to sit up in this room and protect the game. Jimmy had this game where he gave keys away down on the floor. Yeah, he had a barrel of keys. And you select the key and you go up and you try it in the lock. And if it fit, you won the game.
Huh.
One of those deals.
Yeah.
So my job was to stand alongside of that game. And Jimmy told me, he says, now, if anybody's key fits that lock and they open that door, yell for the police because nobody's got a key to that lock except me, and it's in my pocket. I sat up there for 3 days watching that game, and these guys coming in trying that lock, never did open it. That was my baptism, you might say, of the coin machine industry, because I met all the guys,
So they all knew you from way back in the Western days, huh?
Oh yeah. So and also another thing interesting, Jimmy Johnson had an arcade in the lobby of the Sherman Hotel, and he kept I don't know, 6, 8, 10, 12 games in there, something like that. And after I'd been with Western a year or so, I got the job of repairing all those games. So almost invariably at night after I leave work, I go down there and touch them up, and before I go home at night, I'd stop down there at the Sherman Hotel and fix up the games.
Very interesting.
Which gave me even more experience at games and the people playing the games,
Yes.
All that experience added up into what I was, what I became.
That's pretty incredible.
What a story, huh?
Oh, yes. So back to bingos for a second. I'm a huge fan of bingos myself, which is kind of unusual, especially for someone my age. But
why are you a fan of bingos?
I really think that the circuitry is amazing.
Oh well, you mean from a technical standpoint?
Well, I like the gameplay as well.
You do, huh?
Yes. I find it very, very challenging, and of course, I don't play for money. I just play in my home here, but it's.
I don't think I've ever shot a ball on a bingo game. I don't think so. I studied them.
Yeah.
Looked at them, understood them, but I don't think I ever actually shot a game.
Really?
Well, but I don't think I ever shot a game.
Well, it can be quite a thrill.
I really never thought about it, you know.
Huh. Well, you were...
I would have one in your home.
Well, I just find them fascinating and a lot of fun to play with all the mechanical movement of the numbers in the back box, and all that kind of stuff really fascinates me and makes for a real serious thinking game, I think.
Well, that it is, yeah.
Yeah, but
big circuit.
Oh yeah.
Used to love to study that circuit. Each time we got a game in, I'd sit down and study it, see what changes were made in it, and so on.
Yeah.
I thought
they really evolved over time too. But so you really did not enjoy. You mentioned you didn't enjoy playing the payout games that came from the 30s. Did you ever play the one ball games in the 40s with the horse races? No.
Yeah, we had one. You know, we made one.
I did know that. Yeah.
I think it was called Daily Races.
It was the new Daily Races. That was the
new Daily Races.
Yep.
Yeah. And you know, that was quite a game. A good friend of mine, he was put in charge of building that game, and he was very unhappy. He
didn't
want to build that game in the worst way.
Well, why was he made to do it?
Yeah, they made him do it, you know. He came from Western Electric. He used to run their cable department, Western Electric. Huh. His name was Frank Underhill.
Okay.
Great guy. Good friend. Him a good friend of mine. He moved to Arkansas, over on the west side of Arkansas. So I didn't get to see him too often, but we'd go back and forth occasionally after I moved down here.
So, you were at Gottlieb at the time that New Daily Races was produced?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in 47.
Oh, yeah.
So do you know what the push was behind that?
No, I really don't. I don't know why we made it.
That was very unusual for Gottlieb, especially at that time. I mean, that's just post-war, but yeah, interesting. You
know, sometimes you just do things because you try to keep the factory busy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't speak for all people, but when I was designing, I felt a very strong responsibility to the people that are dependent upon me for a living.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we had maybe, when I was designing, we had maybe 200 people or 100 people. But each one of them had a family of 4 or 5. All these people depending on me, and then our suppliers and their people, and their this, and they were depending on me producing a game.
Mm-hmm.
That always affected me, and it drove me more than anything. Thinking I got to get a game, got to keep this factory busy. There's so many people, and I don't think we ever closed up a day when I was designing.
Wow, that's quite an accomplishment, and that pretty much explains how there are so many games credited to you because of that sense of duty. I think that's a wonderful thing.
Made a lot of games.
Yes. And so another question about that Sweet Adeline with the numbers on the back glass there.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why the number sequences are only scored in vertical columns instead of vertical and horizontal? Would it have been too bingo-esque?
I I think that might have had something to do with it, but I didn't want it to look like a bingo card, so I put them all in line. And then, of course, Parker followed the same layout almost that I had.
Mm-hmm.
He followed it as much as he could all the time. But yeah.
So would you do kind of a sketch of what you thought the art should kind of follow, or how would?
Yeah, I always did.
You did?
But,
wow.
But so many times Parker was a great artist.
Mm-hmm.
He was just fantastic, and he just laughed at my art because I'm a poor artist. I draw things, like I had a game I called Monkey Shine.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Dave didn't like that because the word shine meant black.
Mm-hmm.
But they call that, I forget what it was now. But,
did that become Tropic Isle?
Oh, I named every game, but they didn't use the name. But I tell you, one name, our first Atta-Ball game.
Yes.
Was called Flipper.
Mm-hmm.
And that game, I told Dave right from the beginning, I said, this game is going to be called Flipper after Harry Mabs. I always thought it would be a great name. Because, see, the first game that Harry made with a flipper in it was called Flipper. Maybe you didn't know that. But the first flipper game was
Humpty Dumpty.
Humpty Dumpty.
Yes.
Yeah, but Harry made it, and he called it Flipper. See, and it was just a glass of and the artwork was such that it was just a man standing in a light box, a tux on or something, and it wasn't a very exciting glass, and we were just about ready to go into production, just about within a week maybe,
mm-hmm.
and on a Monday morning, Dave came into our engineering room and says, "I got an idea." That glass don't do that game justice. We're going to change the game. We're going to go into a nursery series. We're going to call it Humpty Dumpty.
Mm-hmm.
And we call in Parker, and he changed the glass, the playboard, and we changed the game just a little bit. I think we added a sequence in or something. We did a little something to it, to the circuit, and the whole thing was changed over to Humpty Dumpty, and that was the beginning of that nursery rhyme series of games we had. But it was just about ready to go into production. The screens were cut, the playboard screens were all cut,
wow.
Plastic, and he changed it and for the best, because boy, that was beautiful. That Cinderella glass, that Humpty Dumpty glass.
Yeah, that whole series of glasses is really something.
Yeah, really, Parker really put his heart into it.
Mm-hmm.
Parker was really an artist, and he never played pinball.
Really?
He would come into the showroom where he would always come. And he'd come around 4:30 in the afternoon, and we'd all gather together
mm-hmm.
and do his drawings. And he would come in, he'd lay the drawings out on the top of the playboard of the games that we had in the showroom. But he never played a game.
Wow.
Never.
Would he ever observe somebody playing just to see how his artwork lit up or anything like that? Or
nope.
Wow.
He would never touch the game, and which is strange.
Yeah.
I always said, "Why didn't he play?" But he never. Of course, he was was all business.
Mm-hmm.
He was he's that kind of guy. He came to do his job and he went. You know. He had a studio in his home,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was up on the second floor of his house. And he invited us guys up there one time, and Smith and I and Tony, and we went up there and had dinner. His wife cooked a nice dinner, and then we went up to his studio, and he did a lot of work at home too. So we could see where he was working. And
So how quickly would he turn around the art for a game?
well, you know, the artist, like, well, you know, Parker was particularly fast. He could draw so quickly, but see, he never cut screens.
Mm-hmm.
He would draw, and then the screen cutters would take over.
Oh, okay.
But he was a good artist. And then we went and had two other artists after he died. Can't think of their names now.
Morrison was one.
Morrison, and he was he was a young guy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and funny as the dickens. He was a character. He was a character, and you know, he was chasing women all the time, you know, and he would sneak his girls' names on the glasses, you know. And once I found out that he was doing it, it was a challenge. And actually, a lot of times he didn't put them on there, you know, but he says, it's on there, you know, you'll never find it. But I think sometimes he never put them on. Well, every once in a while we find something he snuck on that we didn't know was on there. But he was a character. He didn't live too long. It was a shame, too, because he was a young man. I don't know. He died after I left, so I don't know. He died after I left.
The other person that I see that has done some art is Art Stenholm.
Yeah, Stenholm.
And any stories about Art?
Well, Art wasn't a very good artist. He never... He was a good artist, I guess, in his own sense, but pinball art was not his style.
Mm-hmm.
He was not thrilled with the idea that he had to draw it. he didn't like us guys, you know. We were a bunch of characters. We really are. And but he was more of a serious artist, I think. And he didn't take much to artwork. But we when he left, we got what's his name? The other one.
Morrison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see how the name slipped from mind, you know.
Yeah.
When Morrison was drawing, he fell behind, and we needed some artwork done. So Judd told me to go to Stenholm
Mm-hmm.
and give him a layout of a board and a glass, tell him what we want, and give him the drawings, and tell him to come up with something, you know. So I went down to Art's house. He lived in Indiana, just over the line from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't far. It was, you know, I went down there after work and gave him the drawings and told him to draw. So he made a drawing for us, and it just didn't compare with Morrison. Morrison was a pretty good artist, and Parker, of course, was outstanding. but I don't know. He just didn't have the feel for games. He was an artist, but he was not. It took a certain feel, and Parker had it. He had the humor.
Yes.
That game is so beautiful. Can't think of it now, but he had humor in all his games. Sometimes he put just a little humor in. Sometimes it's really humorous.
Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite glasses of his is Jack and Jill.
Jack and Jill, yeah. That was a good one.
It's a beautiful glass. So, did Art Stenholm and did he work at Ad Posters, or was he actually with Gottlieb as
we never had an artist.
Okay.
They all worked for Ad Poster.
Okay.
Or the other, we had another company. Parker worked for.
I think I have a note on it. His original company that burned down, right?
Yeah. It burned down twice.
Right. That's some bad luck. Do you know what happened that caused it to burn down?
Well, I tell you, it was in a fire trap. That building was a fire trap. There's no question about it.
Oh,
I was in it at one time, and I tell you, I was glad to get out of it. It was reeked with chemicals, and the place is saturated. It was ready to go up into a flame.
Wow.
And the first time they managed to get it out pretty quick, but the second time it just went to pieces. So they never came back after that.
I have a note that it was called Reproduction.
Reproduction Company, yeah.
So that was the name of it, Reproduction Company.
Yeah, Reproduction.
So, can you tell me a little about your experience with World War II? What part of the Army were you in?
I was in, I went into the Army and ended up in the Signal Corps.
Did you finish up as a lieutenant?
Yeah. I never got any promotion.
So, I hear that David Gottlieb had a hand in getting you out of the Army after World War II. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. When the war ended, we all got leaves. I got a leave, and I came home, and of course I went over to the factory to see who came back. All my friends were there, and some of them were back, some of them weren't.
Mm-hmm.
But Gottlieb was there, and of course Nate, and so on, and Bob and Tony, and we're all there, and what's his name was in the office with Dave at the time, Senator Capehart. Capehart was the owner of Wurlitzer, and he was also a senator.
Huh.
And he was a friend of Dave's, and he happened to be sitting in Dave's office when I walked in.
Interesting.
And so we got talking, and so Dave said, "Well, when you coming back? How soon can you get back here?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Whatever that Army does, they take their time about things, so I don't know how long it'll take, but as soon as I get out, I'll be back." And so Capehart, he's sitting there, taking this in, and I don't know if Judd told or Dave told him get me out, or whether he turned his own or whatever. But within 3 or 4 days after I got back to my unit, I was out. It's good to know a senator.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, but that's happened that way. He used to come over and talk with Dave, maybe once a month or every couple of months. he'd come in, they'd sit in there and smoke their cigars.
Mm-hmm.
You walk in there in their office, and it reeked with smoke. Just reeked. Oh. Yeah.
And was there ever a reason that Gottlieb never got into the jukebox business? Was it because of that friendship between Wurlitzer and Gottlieb?
Well, it's an entirely different field.
Yes.
It's a different field entirely than that. And, we weren't in that area at all. It wasn't our expertise.
I gotcha. Yeah, I know that Rockola, for example, in the 30s, ended up in the jukebox business, but they made some games as well. So
yeah, well, see, they were located right near Western.
Mm-hmm.
They were about 2 blocks away. In fact, we used to play baseball in their parking lot.
Wow.
See, Rockola had a big lot,
mm-hmm.
and Western and Rockola were. Jimmy actually worked for Rockola at one time. And when they were selling pianos or whatever they were doing, I don't know. But so we were kind of connected to Rockola. We had a pretty good baseball team. In fact, that's how I got to know a lot of the guys in the industry, younger guys, because the older guys didn't play, but the younger guys, we all played. Our high school kids, very shortly out of high school, and we had uniforms, caps, and shirts, and we had a regular tournament.
Wow,
so
serious.
We got to know each other pretty well, and I knew one guy. I happen to remember his name because it's so easy. His name was Lavender.
Huh.
And Lavender worked for I can't think. But anyway, I was going to go work there, but then when I got off the streetcar and Gottlieb was close by, and
it was Genko.
Oh, Genko, yeah. Genko was just a block the other way, so I didn't go down to Genko. But Lavender worked at Genko, and so I would have went there, and of course then I would have been with
Steve Kordak.
Kordak, yeah, eventually, because Kordak came into the industry about the same time.
Mm-hmm.
He was in some government project, working building trails in the forest or something, and government work just to keep busy and get a little money. And
mm-hmm.
He got, but he and I could have been a team.
That would have been something.
Yeah.
But your games, just personally to me, mean an awful lot. They've brought me an awful lot of enjoyment. So thank you very much for all your work.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I've heard a lot of people have told me that, and of course I don't see it because I'm so close to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's work to me. But I always had fun playing the game.
So, would you play other games, especially as you went up the ladder, so to speak, to chief engineer? Would you play competitors' games ever, or were you strictly a company man as far as game playing went?
Just company. I wouldn't play any other game.
Gotcha.
But, we had a showroom that was right around by the offices. We had one of each of our games in there, like a 4-player, 2-player, regular 5-ball game, add-a-ball game. all lined up in the showroom. And at night, shortly before going home, we wander in, go to the washroom or whatever, and I'd go through the showroom, and I'd stop and play. And Dave, almost every night, would come out of his office around 4:30, and he would always go to the Atta-ball game. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't play the multiple players or the single player, but he'd play that Atta-ball. And I'd kid him every once in a while. I'd say, come on, move over and play one of the other games and give us a break. And he just laughed. He's first come, first serve. So, okay, Dave, you win, but I would be here earlier tomorrow. But he loved to play the Atta-balls, and I think I did too, really. And I still prefer an Atta-ball game to because there's no limit to what you can.
You can keep playing forever if you have the skill.
Yeah, it's just a fantastic idea.
Yeah. So,
I think I told you about how the name got Flipper.
Yes.
It was on the first Atta-ball game in honor of Harry Mabs.
Yes.
I always respected Harry.
And you worked with him back at Western.
Yeah, I knew him at Western.
So, was it interesting coming to Gottlieb, and Mabs had already made the transition? And
well, that's really why I went to Gottlieb, was because of Harry. I knew Harry was at Gottlieb, and so I just took a shot, and walked in the front door and told him I'm here to work if you'll need somebody, and they hired me on the spot.
And did you work well with Mabs?
Oh yeah. I went to work. I left Gottlieb. I left Western about 1:30, 2 o'clock, and by 3 o'clock I was working at Gottlieb, and I worked there till 6 o'clock. In 3 hours. But one place is the same as another. One company is the same as another. They both do things. They make playboards. They make bottom panels and light boxes, and they assemble them in an area. One called it a bull ring. One just called it a line, and just terminology different, but the method was almost identical.
So, which part of your career did you prefer? You did so many different things. Which was your favorite thing to do? Was it drafting? Was it designing circuitry? Was it designing a game in its entirety? What was your favorite thing?
Oh, I don't know. I think drawing circuits was my favorite thing. I love the challenge of drawing a circuit. And I tell you one thing I always did when I built a game. Mm-hmm. This is very interesting. I would lay out my playboard, get all the facts and all the things I wanted to do with it. Then I draw the circuit. Then I put the game together. And when I got done with it, I got it all set up, ready to play, and I pushed the coin chute in, and I wanted the ball to come back to me, and I wanted to shoot it, and I wanted to play right. Mm-hmm. It never, except one time. In all the games I built, only one game did I ever put together without an error.
What was that game?
Yeah, I don't know. I've forgotten it in history, but that is a tremendous challenge.
Yeah.
You can make a mistake in drawing the circuit. You can make a mistake in wiring. You can make a mistake in soldering. There's so many places you can make an error, and to make it come out where you can close it up and push the coin chute in and play was always a challenge. And I loved to put a game together. And when I played it, I go, wow,
Yep.
Usually I had to fix something. Wire,
I've been making games myself. I think I mentioned I've designed a couple games, and I've wired up one, and that was the most nerve-wracking thing, was pushing the coin switch that first time.
Yeah, it is a little exciting,
Yeah.
After all that work you put into it,
yep.
And then it comes down to that final push.
And
I'll tell you another song, something that might be interesting.
yeah.
You know what a Jones plug is.
Oh yes.
That is all you know is a Jones plug.
Hmm.
Well, back before the Jones plug, there was a life. We had a life back then. Jones came along and made the plug, but that was fine. But we had a whole series of fingers.
Uh-huh.
They were punched out of brass,
Mm-hmm.
stapled to a Bakelite strip, and this strip would be screwed against the back of a cabinet,
Uh-huh.
and then the playboard would have a strip that would match these. And when you put the playboard down, the fingers would meet
Mm-hmm.
and make contact, and that's the way we made contact. Of course, when you raise the board up, you didn't have any contact, so you couldn't try it with the board up. You had to try it with everything with the board down.
Yeah,
but it was so hard to work on. But we used that for several years before the Jones plug came along, and boy, everybody loved that Jones plug. When you put that together and plugged it together, it was together.
Oh yeah. And so was that a particular vendor that came around with the Jones plugs?
I don't recall. It must have been. I don't recall, but it must have been somebody came up with it and came around and sold it to us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall it, no. I should remember it because I was there when we started using it. I remember using the fingers, and they were a pain, I'll tell you.
I've only ever worked on games that have them in the door, where the front door actually comes off, but not under the playboard. That must be pretty rough. Because I imagine when you lift it, you could accidentally shear some of the fingers off.
Well, yeah. Well, you could short out too.
Yeah.
You'd short out onto another circuit.
Oh gosh.
It could blow a lot of lights or something.
Yeah.
Another thing I did, kind of interesting to you, I think.
Mm-hmm.
When I started in '36,
mm-hmm.
they were just changing over from battery-operated games to power pack.
Mm-hmm.
They had these big cells. Those ones about 2 inches in diameter and 8 inches high or whatever.
Yep.
And there's 3 or 4 of them in the game, and that was. And the operator, he handled that. But once he got electricity, he had to plug it in the wall. Scared the daylights out of him, They didn't like that, But they had a bunch of games with these batteries in it, and they'd bring them back into the factory and have a power pack, have the batteries taken out and the power pack put in, and so it now be electrified. You can plug it in the wall. So they bring these games back into Western, and one of the things I used to get to do was to switch these power packs out into the batteries out into the power packs. Mm-hmm. And when I had to open up the game, all the nickels that were laying in the back of that cabinet were mine. They ended up in my pocket. So whenever they bring a game in to have a power pack for it, boy, I was there. I was ready for that one, and I'd love to do that. But in the meantime, when I did that, worked on those, and not only did I get the few nickels that were laying in there, but I got to meet the operators.
Uh-huh.
Of course, the operators were always looking for somebody to come fix their games. So mm-hmm. I had several operators that I worked on the side at night. They'd pick me up at Western at 5 o'clock, and I'd go out with them and drive down to Indiana someplace or out in Western Illinois and where they were legal, and fix their games. And then they bring me home, 4 or 5 in the morning, and my mother's up, yelling at me, "Where you been? Where you been?" I said, "I've been out working, making money."
Mm-hmm.
But I learned how to fix pinball machines, and I love Gottlieb. He was a good friend of mine, and we became very close, him and I. He was an honest guy. You can't say that about many people today.
Mm-hmm.
But he was honest. We made that Challenger, and it was a dog. It was. One day a guy shows up at the factory. He wanted to buy 200 Challengers. I just happened to be in Gottlieb's office at the time. Judd was there. And I don't know whether Judd was there or not. Elvin was there. Tony was there. Smith was there. We must have been having a meeting or something. Anyway, the guy shows up. He wants to talk to Dave Gottlieb. And they bring him in. And he's from northwest Canada. Where exactly, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But northwest Canada, someplace. And he wanted to buy 200 Challengers. And Dave says, you don't want 200 Challengers. They're not for the game. They won't make any money. Mm-hmm. And he says, I know my territory. And I know those games are going to make a lot of money. Well, Dave tells him, I tell you what, if you'll pay for them, I'll make them. But remember, I'm telling you, you're going to go broke. Just remember that. He told him it several times. Don't do it, but if you want to, I'll do it. You know? Uh-huh. I'll pay you cash for it. He paid him. We built him. The guy went broke. But, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
It shows a part of Dave,
Yeah. Integrity.
He didn't sell. He unsold. Mm-hmm. But the guy insisted. And we were all sitting there, just our mouths were hanging open. We couldn't believe what we were hearing.
So
a lot of things, crazy things happen at Gottlieb, I'll tell you. There's a million stories I could tell you, but, they got to come to me slowly.
Well, does anything come to you about David Gottlieb? Any other stories right off the top of your head there?
Well, yeah. I can think of another one. I can think of a lot of them, but just off the top of my head right now, I can think. We made a game called Ski Ballette. Uh-huh. You ever hear of it?
No.
You heard of Evans?
Yes.
They made a game called Ten Strike.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's that bowling game.
Yep, with the mannequin.
At the mannequin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Harry Mabs got the bright idea of making a skee ball game with this mannequin.
Okay.
So the mannequin would throw the ball, go up a little incline, and drop into a hole.
Uh-huh.
And it could drop into the center hole, which is the score, big score, or miss the center hole, go to the next one and make a different score, and so on. Mm-hmm. Like a bullseye.
Yeah.
And so it was beautiful, The idea was fantastic.
Yeah.
And they made thousands and thousands of 10 strike. That was a very popular game. So Harry makes this game, see, and everybody loved it. This is a winner for sure. Evans come over. He wanted to buy the game from Dave. Dave wouldn't sell it to him. So Dave opens up a new plant and down on 22nd Street in Chicago, and he sent some of us guys down there. I was one of them. I went down there, and we built this game. Well, we must have made, I don't know, 100, maybe. Everyone came back. It was a flop.
Huh.
Absolute flop. And the problem was, and we didn't realize it. Nobody realized it was that either it was so accurate that it would drop in the center pocket every time,
mm-hmm.
or you couldn't put it in the pocket every time. It would just be any place, and there was no fun.
Yeah.
You had no control over it.
Huh.
Anyway, it was an absolute flop. Well, in the meantime, Dave had bought plywood that was covered with a, kind of covering was on it. Oh, I can't think of the name of covering.
Formica.
Formica covered sides. So he bought these things in sheets, like 4 by 8 foot sheets or something, all with Formica on it.
Uh-huh.
And then he went to the cabinet company and we made cabinets, and we had these darn cabinets coming out our ears. So then when it became a flop and they had to close up, we got all the games back again, we had all this lumber left over.
Okay.
He takes the lumber home and he paneled his basement recreation room with his paneling all around the room. See, and he said, I sit there in my rec room and look at that paneling. It taught me a lesson. He's like, to be more careful how I spend my money, and look at a game more carefully. And we all laugh about his paneled basement,
That's really funny.
Dave sitting there looking at that paneled wall.
Just scowling.
Yeah, just thinking of all the money he lost and what that cost him, that wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, a lot of crazy things happened to us. We enjoyed it.
Now, Harry Mabs designed a game called Bowlette, and it's the only puck bowler that Gottlieb made, as far as I know. Do you remember anything about that particular game?
No, I know that I remember the name.
It was about the size of a pinball cabinet. It was very unusual. It's very interesting. Okay.
Oh wait, yeah, oh yeah. It was. I remember that. Now it come back to me. That game. We ran it in the shop like a regular pinball machine,
mm-hmm.
and it was so complicated with all those switches. We had nothing but trouble. And in the shop, our crew, they couldn't handle it. It was too complicated for our crew.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were running it across the bowl ring, all us engineers were working on the line. We worked at the final area, shooting trouble.
Mm-hmm.
The electrical guys, not the mechanical guys, but myself and 2 or 3 other guys. We worked on the line, and as long as that game was being built, because they couldn't handle it. And after that game was over with, I came up with the idea that we had to teach our testers. We had to train them better. We had to teach them electricity, circuitry, troubleshooting, hints, and that kind of stuff. So I started a little school, and I had it one night a week for a couple hours after work, and I got textbooks and one thing or another, and a blackboard, and I had all the testers, and anyone who wanted to become a tester in the shop,
mm-hmm.
come to the class, and I taught troubleshooting as a after work one night a week,
Wow.
and it paid off. It paid dividends. It really did. And at first, they some of the guys scoffed at it, but I said, it's going to work. You just wait and see, because they're in a different environment. They're in a classroom environment. I brought them into the lunchroom. We sat down, and I got a blackboard, and I got a textbook that taught basic electricity. Mm-hmm. And then I worked circuitry into it. And I ran it for, I don't know, a year or two, and it really worked well for us. I enjoyed doing it, and the guys enjoyed it too, and they had fun doing it, and they got paid for it besides, so they really liked it.
Yeah, it's the best of all worlds there.
They got an extra hour or two pay every week, and overtime, so they made out pretty good.
Yeah.
But they learned,
mm-hmm.
and it helped, because I could see the trouble when we were building that game, that it was too complicated.
Mm-hmm.
The circuit, all those switches and the circuitry to make it work it was tough. It was a good circuit. That's the kind of circuit I enjoyed,
Complex.
One of the things I enjoyed working on.
Mm-hmm. So, do you remember if that was a commercial success, the Bolette?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a flop. It was just a game.
It was okay. I got you.
Yeah, it was okay. We had a run. I don't know. I could probably look up how many we made. Really unimportant at this time. But I got a list of all the games and how many we made, so I could look it up. But,
wow.
But they ran it. But there was a time when we all made bumper pool. Remember bumper pool?
Yeah.
And of course we got in on it too. Every company got in on bumper pool.
Mm-hmm.
And we got involved in it too. I don't think we made any money on it, because by the time we had to set up a separate factory, and it took people out of our factory, and it hurt us in a way, and the competition on bumper pool was unbelievable. Every company made them.
Yeah.
They were easy to make.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to them. So.
Do you remember about what year that might have been?
Oh, gosh, I can't remember now.
That's
look
okay.
It up.
I wasn't aware that Gottlieb had gotten into the bumper pool business, though. That's very interesting.
Oh yeah, we made them. Yeah, but we got into it late, and that wasn't good either.
Yeah.
We went in. We hesitated too long. No, it just wasn't good for us.
Gotcha.
We should have stayed with what we had, And,
mm-hmm. Stick with success, huh?
Yeah.
So
you do what you know best.
Yeah.
And we knew pinball machines, and
you went through quite a lot of different gimmicks. As gameplay gimmicks, or come-ons, as I've heard you call them before at your time there at Gottlieb. There was a double award feature.
Oh, yeah. That was kind of a silly thing, Nobody liked it.
Oh, yeah?
Nobody liked it. I had a hard time spelling it.
Really?
I told him, it don't cost us anything. What's different? If you could put it on a glass and it say double award, you got it made.
Yeah.
It don't cost nothing. Pennies.
Mm-hmm.
Might be something good. And we used it several times. I don't know, maybe half a dozen games.
Yeah.
And it was well liked. People did use it, and operators would tell us, it's good. That's nothing wrong. That's fun. Players like it. So I'd put it on there just for the heck of it, And I didn't think they'd ever use it.
Huh.
But once I had it on the game and I played it, I said, hey, this is fun. I get doubles, you know.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. It's a silly little thing. See? But the pin game is a silly thing.
Yeah, it's a fun way to spend a nickel or two.
It's just I don't know. It's just a fun thing, and just a little more fun to it, and an extra nickel added a little fun to it.
Yep.
So you win one game, you know, and you say, "Oh, next game I'll kill it." You put in 2 nickels, and of course you blow it.
Right. That's my experience.
But that was the fun of it, you know.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. Psychology is it's a strange thing, you know. People, the way they think,
mm-hmm.
you gotta outthink people to get a nickel out of them, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been a continuous challenge.
But I tell you, you know, pin game is a fun thing to play, and I've always felt it. You know, that if I give somebody some fun with it, it's wonderful. And still today, I'm giving fun to an awful lot of people, because I have people from all over the world I talk to. You know, they all love these games.
Yes.
Oh.
It's pinball is kind of a universal, and it's amazing to me that even though cultural sensibilities and tastes have changed over the years, stepping up to a game that was designed in 1956 or even earlier, you can have a tremendous amount of fun even today. So that's a testament to just how solid the designs that you came up with were.
You know, here we go out to breakfast once a week. A little group of us here.
Mm-hmm.
We go to different restaurants in town, and one of the restaurants, the guy is a pinball nut. You know.
Uh-huh.
And when he called out, I wore one of my pinball shirts one day, and hey, where'd you get that shirt? The cook. Yeah, the cook happens to own the place.
Uh-huh.
He comes out to make sure everything is okay. You know, he's a real nice guy. And it's a family type thing, you know.
Uh-huh.
Where'd you get that shirt? And I said, well, I got it when I was working. And he said, you made pinball? I said, sure, I was a designer. He said, oh, my goodness, you know. And now all he does is talk pinball machine. When I go to breakfast, it's just he hasn't forgotten. He of course he's probably 50 years old, 55, but he had played it sometime back in his youth, and it brought back memories to him, and he was thrilled that I actually made a game. You know.
Yeah.
I was a designer. My goodness, is that right? Oh my! Oh yeah.
Well, it's a rare thing, and you certainly have a unique place in the list, the very small list of designers, based on the number of games that you made and how consistently fun they are as well. I find your games to be games that I can step up and play over and over again, and just have a lot of fun. So, was there something in your design philosophy about that? I mean, it sounds like you were really interested in giving people an escape, giving people something fun to spend their money on. Was there anything more to it than that?
Well, I know. I enjoyed it. I've told people a lot of times, that there aren't many people in this world can say they went to work and they had fun.
Mm-hmm.
Most people go to work and it's drudgery. It's the same old thing over and over and over. But I said, every morning when I went to work, I had fun. I look forward to having fun. And I had fun building the game, and I had fun when I played it. And, you can't just play it, you had to play enough games that you had the percentage right. You couldn't have a game. You couldn't build a game where they'd win 3 or 4 games more than they played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You had to have it somewhere percentage properly. And so a lot of it, I'd have to play it, for maybe half a day, and make sure I got everything pinned right and the circuit right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I made it too easy. Maybe I had to change one of the rubbers around a little bit, and whatever. And that sometimes it was easy. Sometimes it fell together. Nothing. I did have to do nothing. But sometimes I had to fight it a little bit, make a few changes here and there.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it must have been just an awful challenge on those games in the 50s where you could win in multiple ways, just to get that just right, where you weren't giving away too many games and getting the money in the cash box.
That's very very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine.
You had to balance it out. You had to win. You had to have enough on high score that makes the high score interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But you also had to have features, and you had to use the feature. If you had a feature, you had to be able to win it once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of tricky to balance the thing out, so high score and features would be about even, and I tried to do that pretty much.
So, but over your tenure, things like the Very Target and the Roto Target came into existence. What was your favorite feature to put in a game?
I think the Roto Target was my favorite feature.
Mm-hmm.
I used it more than anything else. See, that thing at first didn't spin. It just stepped.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Doc came up with a spin, and that I liked very much.
It's very eye-catching. Yeah.
It flashed,
Yeah.
It was exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It gives the player a little shot, and I like the Roto Target. I made a lot of games on Roto Target. My goodness.
It's
an awful lot.
It's a very fun feature.
Yeah. You remember the game Harry Mabs made with the turret shooter?
Yes. Buffalo Bill was one. There were a couple other ones.
I think he made 4, I think.
Was it just 21?
Just 21, I think was the first one.
Okay.
And but anyway, on about the 4th game, it just flopped.
Huh.
They wouldn't play it. Nobody would play it. And we had the 5th game. It might have been the 4th game, but I think it was the 5th game. It was a sensational game. We all loved to play it. When we liked to play it, it had to be a pretty good game.
Mm-hmm.
When the engineering department would go over and play a game on it, it had to be pretty good. And that was a good game. And we were all disappointed when we had to stop building them because the distributors just wouldn't buy them. But Harry came up with that, and Harry was a good idea man.
Mm-hmm.
He was a funny guy too, Let me tell you a little bit about Harry.
Yeah, please do.
You like to hear it?
Oh yeah.
Harry was in the Navy. He was a Navy man.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in the Navy for quite a few years. And he'd come out of the Navy, and he got into the pinball business eventually. But first of all, he's working for an electric company in Miami, Florida, and he got a job of putting in transformers to run lights over a boxing match, over a ring.
Huh. Okay.
And so he builds these transformers. He put them underneath the ring, and he had to sit under the ring, and the fight was going on over his head. And he says, all I could hear was the hitting and the swearing, and he says, all I could hear, and I never saw them both. To hear Harry tell it, it's just a riot, because he was a fun guy.
Yeah.
What a funny story. He was really something.
So I looked up the turret shooter games, and I found one called Ricochet, which was made in 1954.
Yeah.
And that was many years after the other ones, and your name is actually ascribed to this one.
Well, that wasn't a turret game, though, I don't think.
Okay.
I think we just used the name.
Oh, okay.
But I don't remember making that name. Ricochet, I don't remember that name.
Oh yeah, I found a promotional photo, and it does have a turret down at the bottom.
It does have a turret. Well, then I didn't make it.
Okay.
It's my name. It's not. It's done by mistake. I didn't make it. I never made a turret game.
Okay.
Harry Mavs made all the turret games.
Gotcha. Okay. What did you think of...
I think Ricochet was the best game that we made in that with that turret, as I remember back.
It's got an archery theme.
Better of all the games.
Yeah?
But boy, when was that made? What year?
It says 1954.
54. Holy heck.
Which was 4 years after Buffalo Bill.
It's 60 years. Or 60 years ago. My goodness.
Yeah. It's a long time.
Oh, my goodness.
So, were there other games by other designers at Gottlieb that you really liked, aside from Spirit of 76?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think there's any game I don't like.
Man after my own heart. That's good. Or the other way around.
When Krinsky was building games, they had to get past me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I liked every one that he made. That if I didn't like it, he knew it. And he'd do something about it. But he had to go through me, and I had certain likes and dislikes.
Now, did he come from Keeney?
Yeah.
Okay. And was that after Keeney had closed up, or?
No, I think they were still in business, but I don't know why he left there. Maybe they laid him off. I don't remember, because I didn't hire him.
Oh, okay.
Bob hired him, so I didn't have a chance to look at his resume or anything. And I don't think we ever discussed it.
So
all we did was...
I found an interesting fact about Ed Krinsky. He apparently was the bingo designer at Keeney.
Yeah, I think he was.
Does that surprise you? Or is that...
He designed amusement games at Keeney.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't. He was strictly in the gambling area, but he fell into Gottlieb mode, real easy. Of course, Krinsky was a pretty sharp guy,
Yeah.
He was a bright guy, and he knew what we wanted, and he went in, and it was great for me when he came in because I was getting burned out. I think I don't know, but what it did for me was to get me out of the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I got out into the factory and into the other areas of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed that, and
you oversaw, or you were there during the transition from wood legs to metal legs. and wood rails to metal rails.
Oh, yeah.
What did you think about that?
Oh, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we built a better product for less money. Less money. Those legs cost us a fortune.
Yeah.
And those wood rails, unbelievable. You know, you think you put stainless steel on there, it cost you money. It saved us money.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was there any thought to the operator? Was there any request for that from the operators?
No. They just accepted it, you know.
Okay.
We touted it as being better, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Don't burn. Cigarettes are going to burn your moldings, you know. And,
right.
And
it's harder to drill into the game or anything of that nature, right?
Yep, right. That's all selling points we used, you know. Of course, we made money on it.
Yeah, it all works out.
You wouldn't think so. You wouldn't think you could do that.
Yeah.
But wood was expensive.
Wow.
Those legs cost a lot of money. This wood and the metal legs, we made them. You know, we punched them out. We formed them.
Stamped them at the factory, huh?
At the factory, yeah.
Wow. Now, would you have separate factories or separate areas for doing the metal work? Or would you have vendors for most of the metal work? Or...
Well, we always had it in one corner. Now, when we went to Lake Street, when we moved out to Lake Street, we built the factory in I think 3 sections.
Mm-hmm.
The first section, which was a building in itself, was the punch press and our die shop.
Mm-hmm.
That was all in one building. And then we had an open that led to the next factory, and the next opening. So, in that sense, it was a separate building. But when we were on Lina Street and Costner, we were. It was, I'd say, almost a part of the assembly area. It was open to this. It was open.
Okay. And when you became chief engineer, would you have to keep track of all the vendors for a particular game? Like all the parts and getting all that prepared for the factory to assemble?
Oh, no. We had a purchasing agent. Oh, we had a lot of help to do that. No, I wouldn't have anything to do with that. No. The first thing would happen would be after the game was ready to be built, we had a man that went over the game and made a parts list.
Mm-hmm.
Every screw, every nut, bolt, switch, blade was listed.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went to the purchasing department, and they ordered the parts. And they count up how many switchblades, as an example, of what thickness, and order in material for that. That's a big job.
Yeah.
That's a major job. You know?
I'm seeing that now. Yes.
and especially when you're building a game every minute and a half, you know.
Yeah. That purchasing department had to be on top of their stuff too.
Oh yeah, that was a big factor. You know, yeah, we had a purchasing department. Actually, it was 2 men and 1 woman. I think, or maybe there were 2 women, or a woman and a half, maybe, whatever, you know. But it took about people to keep up on that, which is surprising because that's an awful lot of work.
Yeah, they must have been very efficient.
Yeah, we had a pretty good arrangement going there. We had a good purchasing agent.
So,
we had 2 purchasing agents. They were guys.
So after the game is designed, someone comes and makes the bill of materials, and then submits that to the purchasing department, and then they would order enough for a run of a title?
Well, and yeah, that's basically what it is, but it wasn't quite that simple.
Okay.
No. It went from the design stage into the engineering room, and they engineered it. They would change things, but they wouldn't change the game. Mm-hmm. I watched it like a hawk. They could change. Well, if I could think of something, it might. I don't know what, but for some reason they might make a minor change in it, but they wouldn't make very many changes. I wouldn't allow it. I kept my eye on them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's a long process from the time that they would take it out of my room
mm-hmm.
to actually go to production was probably 6-7 months.
Wow. And all that time, previous games that you had designed would be rolling off the line, right?
They have to build the game, draw the circuit,
mm-hmm.
Make a sample game, play it again, check percentages,
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot to it. After I left my room, there was still a lot of work to do, and it took about 7 months, 8 months. And sometimes we got down close when I finally built the Paul Bunyan.
Uh-huh.
That was the last game I designed.
And what do you think of that one?
Well, I said when I was the chief engineer at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing it as I was running in and out of the room and building this at the same time,
Wow.
And I got through it, and I said, I'll never build another game. You can't force me into it because I'll never do it. Anyone who builds a game this way, they don't deserve to be a designer. I can't design anymore. That thing is so bad. But actually, it wasn't that bad a game. Now I look back at it,
mm-hmm.
and we sold quite a few of them. We sold over 3,000. So it wasn't that bad a game. But I was disappointed in it. It wasn't up to my standard. I have to admit that. I couldn't. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. So it sounds like you couldn't devote your full attention to it, so it kind of suffered for that, is what you thought about it at the time?
Yeah, I run in and out of the office, in and out of the room, and taking care of other things, and my mind wasn't on what I was doing, and I didn't like that at all. It rubbed me the wrong way,
Right. So, you've mentioned before lightbox fixtures and making test rigs for them. What does that entail exactly?
Making what?
Making lightbox test fixtures?
Oh, test fixtures.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, every game I went out. That was my job for several months, or a year maybe more than a year.
Mm-hmm.
Every game that came by, I had to make the test fixtures, 3 test fixtures for the light box and 3 test fixtures for the bottom panel. And then when I got through with them, I had nothing to do until the next game came along. So the faster I could build my test fixtures, the more time I had to loaf around and do nothing. And I'm not a guy that lays around and does nothing.
Yeah, I get that impression.
That's why I built College Days.
Mm-hmm.
I started it, and I worked on it for 1, 2, 3 days, maybe a week. And then a new game had come along, and I have to build my test fixtures. So I go back and build test fixtures, and then I start on the. When I get done, I'd hurry up. I had a plan. I had a way of doing them, making them quick. I had kind of a system for it, made it quick, and I had more time to work on my game. And I finally got it done, and everybody liked it. Dave liked it. He really liked it. And it was a pretty good game, college days.
I've never seen one, but I hope to one day.
Yeah, it was a good game. I called it College Days, D-A-Y-S.
Mm-hmm.
And Parker changed it to D-A-Z-E.
Yeah.
And, it's a little humor. And, yeah, that's great, Parker. That's great. I like that.
Mm.
And
so,
but then I the next game and working the same way, working my test fixtures and building the game. And I did 3 games that way.
Wow. You're a busy guy. Very busy guy.
What did you say?
I said you were a busy guy.
Well, I kept busy. I didn't loaf around and kibitz around with all the girls out in the shop. Not too many times. when I was designing, I used to do that. I used to go out and talk to all the girls and the guys. I got to know them all, and I kind of became a father confessor to a lot of them. They were young people, And
Mm-hmm.
I was I wasn't old. I was a married guy,
Yeah.
And they all got a kick out of me coming out and talking with them. They loved that, and it was a release for me.
Mm-hmm.
To do that.
Yeah. So
and a lot of really appreciated it. One guy particularly, he came to me afterwards. He says, "Yeah, I got to talk to you," and and he had problems, and I was kind of a father confessor by this time. I was getting old enough that these young guys would have problems. They come to me, but I never loafed around. In all my days, I worked 8 hours or more, and I worked it, and I never goofed off, never.
I'm so sorry for keeping you up so late. Thank you for doing this.
That's all right, Nick. I love the name Nicholas.
I'm fond of it too.
My dad's name was Nicholas.
Oh, really?
And if I had another son, I would have called him Nicholas.
Wow.
But my first son, I called Andrew because of another man I knew who I respected and one thing or another. But I said, the next boy is going to be Nicholas. But I never had another boy. I had 2 girls. So they never got the name used. Never used the name, but Nicholas has always been a name that I've been fond of.
Well, thank you.
So when your name was Nicholas, Nicky, yeah. Nick, my dad was Nick.
Well, thank you very much. Wayne, I just really appreciate you taking your entire night talking with me. I can't believe you did this. It's such a gift to me and to everybody.
All right. If you call me up sometime, we just have a bull session and
sounds good.
Whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. A week after that conversation, I caught up with Wayne Neyens again and asked him just a couple supplemental questions. Here they are. Starting with one about Lynn Durant and his experience with the man.
He was a great guy, and he unfortunately he didn't live too long. But when he was in business, he built a great company,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell you, he was very generous. I think here's a little story I could tell you. I think you know, the coin machine industry had an association. They had a coin machine association, and they wanted to do something to you know, help humanity and whatever, you know. Mm-hmm. And so they decided to take money from these different companies and have a fund and have a thing and give money away. So they decided to give money to the Damon Runyon Cancer Fund.
Okay.
You know who Damon Runyon is?
I don't actually.
You don't know?
No.
Well, he was a Broadway producer, an author. He was a Broadway showman, what he was.
Okay.
And very popular in those days. And he put on, wrote movies and plays and so forth. And so we, the Coin Machine Association decided to put up this money for cancer in his name. And so they had a luncheon, a dinner, mm-hmm. and we all went to the dinner, of course, and all these manufacturers got up, and I give $10,000 to Damon Runyon Cancer Fund. The next guy would get up, and I give $10,000 to this. And come Lynn Durant's turn, he gets up and he hands out a check. He says, and I give $50,000 to the Damon Runyon Cancer Fund.
Wow.
Everybody almost fell over. All these guys were giving $10,000, and he gives $50,000 to the Damon Runyon Cancer Fund.
Wow.
What a guy, you know, what a guy.
Yeah.
And he floored everybody. The place became silent. Unbelievable. He was a guy.
Did you ever get a chance to analyze any of the United bingos that Lynn Durant?
No, I don't remember ever having seen a United bingo.
Gotcha. I don't
think I did. I could have forgotten, but I don't think we ever got one in. We always got Valley bingos in.
Got it. Yeah, that sparked my curiosity because I knew that you had known him at Western, so I was just curious if you kind of followed his engineering career a little bit. But yeah, and then I read something the other day that there was a court case between Gottlieb and Bally, and something in it said that you were called to testify. Is that true?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That is true. It was down in New Orleans.
Oh yeah.
And I tell you, that was something. Of course, I was very familiar with the Valley bingo, and fortunately, you know, I had it down pretty pat. Mm-hmm. And Valley decided to want to have a test case, and they let the government know they were shipping this game, and then when we got there, the government picked it up, and there was a big lawsuit, and the government calls me in to testify, you know. Mm-hmm. And I spent, I don't know, a day on the stand or more. I don't know. It was a long time.
Wow.
And when I got through and I got home, I told Dave, I said, you know, you can do what you want to do, but I'll never testify against anybody at any time or anywhere. And I never did. See, before that, I was going to court quite often.
Oh, really?
Testifying for different things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you another little story if you're interested. You know, want another story?
Sure, yeah.
This is a good one. And I think it was in New York State. Now let me think. It wasn't Albany, but it was in New York State. And a guy had the game in a tavern, and instead of using a knockoff button to pay out, you know how they paid off.
Yeah, yeah.
You know that.
Yep.
Well, in this place here, they didn't want to pay off because the law was very strict, and the cops were watching it too closely. So what the operator did, I'll go at it another way. They had this game in this tavern, and the police came along and confiscated it and hauled it off to this law office, and then this operator and the owner of the tavern were arrested, and the trial was coming up. Now the government needed an expert witness.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting at my drawing board one day, drawing a circuit or whatever I was drawing, and my phone rings, and the girl from the distance says, "There's two guys out here want to talk to you." And they talk to me. Yeah. I go out there, and they served me with a subpoena to show up at this trial, you know.
Ooh.
So I was floored, you know. But anyway, I go to Dave, and Dave said, "Well, you got a subpoena, you got to go." So he gives me the money and I fly out to wherever this was, you know, and I get off the airplane. It's late at night. It's about, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And these two lawyers meet me at the plane, and they say, "Oh, we're glad to see you. You know, you got to come up there and take a look at this game because it won't pay out." We push the button and nothing happens, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I go up to the office, and they open up the game and take a look at it and hear what they did with the two wires that you would normally close with a switch on the bottom. They took the wires off and soldered wires on there, and they took them, put a little hole in the back of the machine, and they put these wires through that hole, went down through the floor, under the basement, and up into the bar area.
Wow.
So guys would win 5-10 games, and they'd want their money, and they go to the barkeep, and he just pressed the button and give them the 50 cents or whatever it was, you know. so these two wires were ripped out of the wall. When they hauled the machine away, the police, they didn't know.
Yeah.
They just grabbed the machine and went out the door with it. Well, the wires broke off.
Yeah.
And they were hanging, one was half in the cabinet, one was hanging out the back. So I told these lawyers, I said, "Here's what happened," and I explained it to them, you know. And they said, "Oh, thank God, you know, well, we could go to court tomorrow and be fairly safe." See? So we go to court the next day, and Rufus King, our lawyer, came. He wanted to be there to protect me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So Rufus came in and he brought his wife with him. And so him and his wife and I were sitting in the courtroom waiting for the trial to start, and Rufus says to me, "Wayne, if you get that old lawyer who was a rough old guy, he was mean looking, he's terrible. He said, if you get that mean old judge to come down and put his head inside that cabinet, I'll buy you a bottle of liquor." So I said, "Okay, Rufus, you got a deal, you know." Anyway, I have a few people testify, and I finally get called, and I'm on the stand, and they're giving me a hard time, you know, and I'm thinking of this Rufus, you know, and I looked down the audience, and his wife is gone, but had disappeared, and I said, "Well, you know, okay, she's probably sick or something." But anyway, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But anyway, I say to the judge, I turn around, I look at him, I said, "Your Honor, you know, if you'd come down here, I think I could show you exactly what you're talking about, you know."
Mm-hmm. He
gets up off of that bench, and he comes stomping down there, and I get off, stand and go down. He puts his head in one side, and I put my head in the other side. And he says to me, "What the hell is going on here?" So, and then him and I are talking, just like you and I are talking.
Right.
We're just not legal or anything. We're, have no questions or just, and I just explain what happened. I said, this is what happened. You push the button and it takes it off, or they just pull the wires off the button and ran them out of the back of the machine, and there the wires are. And I showed it to them, and I said, that's what they did, and it's obvious, and they were using it to pay off, no question about it,
Yep.
So the judge said, "Oh boy, thanks a lot. I appreciate this." And so I go back and get on the stand, and the judge gets back on the trial goes on, and so they're still after me, these defense lawyers. So then I look out over the audience. Here, Rufus's wife is coming in. She's got a brown sack. She's holding up a bottle of liquor. So she held it up, and I could see it. I couldn't help but laugh.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but laugh. But anyway, of course, the case is over then. It was done and finished.
It was open and shut then, huh?
Achieve, but it's just one of those funny things that happen in life. So, I always had a lot of fun,
Yeah.
I involved in so many things. I don't know why. I always did, but I did.
So you were called fairly frequently to testify then, up until the Bally trial?
Yeah, I testified. I don't know how many times. I guess 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I don't remember. It's a lot of times anyway. And
wow.
Most of our little cases, in small courts. But the one in New Orleans was serious. These lawyers were all out of New York City, big, smart guys, and they worked me over pretty good, and in fact, my lawyer says to me, when you go out to lunch, he says, "Be careful. Be careful." And I said, "Okay, I'll be careful." And when I went home, I was careful. They were not fooling around. This was serious business now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when I got back to Gottlieb, I told him, no more. I'm not testifying. No more on anything. And he's getting too serious, so...
Stakes
that's
got really high on that last one, huh?
Yeah, that was those guys were too powerful for me. That was big time stuff. That one in Rochester or wherever it was up there in New York was, that was small town stuff, which was okay. I don't mind that, but when we get involved with big money, big people were involved in this one, and I thought I was out of my league. I didn't want that kind of stuff. I was a pinball designer. I wasn't out to testify.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to courts. But the industry was rough. It was a rough business at one time,
Yeah. It sounds like it.
Colorful would be a good word to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a colorful industry. A lot of things happen. I'd forgotten all about this trial thing, and I would have probably mentioned it the other night. But there are a lot of things I still in the back of my mind someplace that's working around. May come out sometime next. So.
Yeah, just waiting to surface at some point. Is there anything about that trial that you can tell me about? Because I don't really know much
in New
about
Orleans?
it. Yeah, I don't know much about the facts of the case or anything really.
Well, I don't want to go into all that stuff again. I've forgotten most of it, but you know what a bingo game is like, and it's
sure.
complex and these darn lawyers, they can twist things around pretty good, but there was something happened. I can't recall now what it was, but they thought they had me cornered on something. I forget. I don't remember now. It may come back to me, but I really caught them on something. I forget what it was now. I stuck it to them, as they would say. and so I can't recall exactly what that was. I don't know. I've forgotten. But it was a rough case, and my lawyer warned me to be careful, and that was enough. That taught me get out of that stuff. I'm not testifying no more.
Gotcha. I'd like to thank Wayne Neyens for coming on the show and spending so much time talking with me and discussing the ins and outs of his pinball career. And thank you very much for listening. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, also at Bingo Podcast, or you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.